Now that football season is upon us, I thought I'd give you a few tips on how to be in the best position to get the best action shots. Now, these are tips for if you have sideline access. I think you could probably use them if you're sitting in the stands, but they're more for sideline access. Okay, so the first tip is to know where you're allowed and not allowed to be. So most fields have a player's coach's box, and that is usually between the 20-yard lines. So you can stand from the 20-yard line to the end zone is probably going to be the best bet for media. Now, I'm going to give you this tip with caution. Sometimes you can go in the player's box depending on the school, depending on how strict they're going to be. So proceed with caution. Now, my school, it isn't very strict, so I can go in there. I usually am in there when they're more midfield, the players are down at the other end, and then I stay in the back, so like I am not in the way. I have not had any issues, but that doesn't mean that other schools, other states aren't going to be a lot more strict. High school and down, for me, hasn't been an issue. Some high schools will be an issue. If you shoot higher, like college or even or whatever, like they are probably going to be a lot more strict. So proceed with caution on that. If you're ever unsure on where to be, ask your AD, ask the refs, ask the coaches. They will absolutely tell you where you're allowed and not allowed to be. So for offense, you want to be downfield from the play, usually about 10-ish or so yards. It really depends on your focal length of your camera lens, how far away you can be and how close you can be. This way you get the play as they're coming at you. The running back running at you, the receivers running at you, and you can also get them on the catch as they get past you a little bit because they'll a lot of times have to turn around. The quarterback may be rolling out depending on the line and the kind of the play situation. Also, being in front of the play helps you get the faces of your linemen. Now, for me, linemen are the hardest to get because they're in position at the start of the play and then they get swallowed up very easily. And so that one's a little tricky. You kind of have to play around with where you're at in order to get them. But that way, if you're in front, you get all of their faces and maybe a good play coming through, lead blocking. And so typically, like most of the time, you will want to be ahead of the play. So I know I just told you to be ahead of the play on offense, but also don't be afraid to go behind the line of scrimmage as well. That way you can get your handoffs, so your quarterback handing off to your receiver, maybe even your quarterback rolling out, depending on where you're at on the field. And so, yeah, don't be afraid of that. Sometimes it's the best way to get linemen as well because you're behind them. Yes, you're not getting their faces. And the rule is like always have the face in the ball in your picture, but sometimes you just have to do what you have to do in order to get them. So, yeah, even though like being ahead of the play is really kind of your best bet when you are doing offense. So don't be afraid to be behind the line of scrimmage because you can get some really cool pictures when you're back there as well. Okay, defense. Where do you want to be for the best position for defense? And you can really be in a couple different places, very similar to offense. So, for your good plays, for your sacks, for your linemen, being in the opposing offense's backfield is going to be the best place to be. That way, if your linemen or skill players kind of break through and make either a sack on the quarterback or a tackle for loss on the running back, you're in position for that. But also, like offense, you can also be downfield. And that way, like when their receiver is running and your corner is tracking them, they can make the big interception play. Like you're in position for that. If the other team makes a big run play and your defense makes a good tackle, you're in position for that play as well. So, defense is very similar to offense. You can really be in a couple different positions to get the best play. Like offense with your linemen, being in your in the opposing team's offensive backfield is going to be your best bet to again, get the linemen's faces. But like I said, on offense, linemen are one of the hardest to get, and you're just going to have to kind of play around with different positionings to get your linemen better, because the skill players are the easiest to get because they're more out in the open. So yeah, that's kind of the best places to be for defense. So kneeling, you get a lot of tips about kneeling while shooting. And while I agree that it gives you a really cool look shooting up at them, it makes them look kind of larger than life. It makes them easier to see kind of under the helmet, in their faces, because the helmet really shadows their faces, especially under the lights. And I agree that it is cool. Now, I prefer not to kneel, depending on the circumstance. If it's a special teams play, kicking, things like that, I will kneel. But my problem is they come flying out at you so fast. I don't want to be stepped on or trampled. I don't want to be injured. I don't want to injure a player. I don't want to break equipment. So I typically don't kneel, because there's been so many times where the players have come flying out on the sidelines, and if I hadn't moved, I definitely would have been hit. And these football players, even high school, they're a lot bigger than me. And then with pads and coming at you full force, I don't want to be in the way. So I typically don't kneel most of the time. Sometimes I will if I don't think the play is going to be close to me, or like I said, on like PATs and things like that. So kneel at your own risk. Yes, it gives you cool pictures, but also I like to have an escape plan. So when they come flying at me, so again, kneel at your own risk. Something that's very helpful also is to know your plays. Now, I don't know exactly what all of our plays are, but I have a general idea of what our offense runs and what our defense does. And that really helps, so I can get into position knowing like, oh, we run a lot or we pass a lot. With our offense, we are running a lot. So I kind of know how to position myself. Yes, we still pass some, but we do a bulk of our running. And so that means like I can kind of play around with being ahead of the offense or behind the offense. So knowing what type of offense and what type of plays your team runs is also very beneficial to your photography. Also, no matter how much you try to be in the correct position, sometimes you just never are. There have been so many times, it happens to me at least probably once a game. I think I'm in the correct position, I'm ahead of the play, but we're downfield, and all of a sudden they break off for a huge run or a huge pass play, and I am not in position, and they take off, and I get their backs because they run right past me. So if that happens to you, don't feel bad. It happens to everybody. You think you're in the correct position and you're not. But yeah, just honestly play around with the different places to stand and the different types of pictures. And once you figure out what works best for you, then stick with it and have fun shooting. And that's basically all this is just have fun. Now, yes, you want to get pictures for your clients, or if you're shooting for a media outlet, typically face and ball in picture, or at least face if you can. But sometimes that doesn't always happen, and parents will still like those pictures. If they're making a cool play and you can't see their face, parents will still really like them. At least in my case, maybe I just have really great parents, but they just want any sort of action picture they can of their kids. I get so many times of, I don't have to worry about taking pictures. I know you're here. You're going to be great. And so maybe I'm just spoiled. Maybe I just have amazing parents that I work with. So if you have any tips or tricks, leave them in the comments below. I will greatly appreciate that. And if you really like this content, let me know and like and follow for more.